A Nazi U-boat sailor was apprehended in Ogdensburg, New York, which actually inspired a movie, The One That Got Away. This is a wild story with some local ties. I'm pretty excited to say this, but either way, I'm Matt.
And I'm Zach.
And this is Yore Town Podcast. So what we're going to do is we're going to take you back before the United States entered World War II. The people of Ogdensburg were met with a pretty unusual guy, which led to a pretty interesting story. Some might even say with a Hollywood-type ending. And I know you've heard the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly didn't hear this story until I started researching it. Like there was a local news channel, Channel 7 News, yep. WWNY TV, apparently did this article in 2022. I didn't see it then. I don't have TV. But as you read into this, it just is absolutely wild. A lot of history in here, and I'm excited that this is the first one. So what do you think? Want to do the thing?
Yeah, let's jump right into it, my guy.
All right, let's do this here. So the story begins with a notorious Nazi lieutenant fighter pilot who had his plane shot down in September of 1940 over Britain and was captured. So this pilot was the only Axis prisoner of war to escape from Canadian custody and return to Germany apart from a U-boat seaman, Walter Kurt Reich, which I love how all these articles are like, he's the only one that's ever done this. Well, except for this guy. But I don't know. So these guys, pretty good. But who is this guy? The guy's name is Franz Xavier Baron von Wera. I'm pretty sure. Mouthful. Holy cow. So what was interesting about this, von Wera and his sister were actually given to a childless friend of their parents so that they could enjoy the benefits of wealth and education. The von Habers, who actually took them in, they didn't even tell the kids the true story of the origin. I don't know if you knew that, but that was pretty wild.
That's nuts.
They hit hard times. The parents were business owners. I think they had like 6 kids, and apparently they were like, 6 kids is too many. Let's just go ahead and give one away to a friend that just doesn't have any kids. So that was pretty nice. Good people, but not good people because, they're Nazis.
Yeah, I mean, eventually it went on to be Nazis, but in 1936, that was a pretty good, run.
Yeah.
You couldn't really complain about that.
Yep. So Wera joined the Luftwaffe. Is that how you say that?
Luftwaffe.
Yeah, I'm going to let you say the German words because I can barely speak. Luftwaffe in 1936 and was commissioned a lieutenant in 1938. At the beginning of the Second World War, he was serving with
Jagdgeschwader.
3 in the Battle of France. I can say the 3 part. This is why we're a good team here. And he was described as an engaging and boisterous playboy behavior. He was once pictured in the press with his pet lion, Simba, which he kept the aerodrome as the unit mascot.
So it's kind of bad foreshadowing, though.
Right? But the dude has the swag to have a pet lion.
That is swag.
That is swag.
That was swag before Tyson did it.
Playboys. Maybe that's where Tyson got it from.
Maybe.
So von Wera was awarded the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross on the 14th of December in 1940. The Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross, or simply the Knight's Cross, was the highest award in the military and paramilitary forces of Nazi Germany during World War II. With the outbreak of World War II on the 1st of September 1939, Adolf Hitler, in his role of Commander-in-Chief of the German Armed Forces, decreed the renewal of the Iron Cross in 1939. So there was a new grade of the Iron Cross in this whole thing. So either way, Hitler brought it back. It was something that was in the late 1800s, early 1900s. He brought it back in this war. And, obviously he was awarded one of those. And apparently their slogan was one people, one nation, one leader. Yeah. So, yeah. How with those guys? But either way, why I tell you about the Iron Cross is because it's going to be a little bit part of this story and a little bit later on. It's going to come back. So that's why I want to just, when we mention it later, what the hell is this thing? Why is it important? Now you know, right? All right, let's talk about where the story starts to get a little more interesting. On the 5th of September, 1940, he was flying a Bf-109E4. It's an airplane. I don't really know much about it.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. And it was shot down over Winchett Hill in Kent. It's unclear who was responsible for this victory. There was like 3 or 4 different people that actually were like, yeah, I shot it down. And victory apparently is what it's called when you shoot down an airplane.
Yeah, you get like a little badge on your plane, I think.
Yeah, you get. Yeah. I didn't know that it was called the Victory.
It's pretty cool.
That's kind of cool. So, all right. So Wera landed in a field on Love's Farm and was captured by the unarmed cook of a nearby army unit. He was initially held in Maidstone Barracks by the Queen's Own Royal West, which is pretty wild. The regiment out there from which he attempted his first escape, his first one. So there's no mention of this escape attempt in the book, The One That Got Away. Spoiler alert, that could even be the name of the movie. He was interrogated for 18 days at the London District Prisoner of War cage, eventually where it was sent to the Prisoner of War Camp number 1 at, what was that, Grisdale?
I would say Grisdale, yeah.
Grisdale Hall. Just keep in mind that we don't speak fluent German, so some of these words we're going to pronounce wrong.
Well, I think that's in England. But...
Or English, German.
Yeah, English is hard.
And I'm not even sure I'm saying his name right. Wera.
It might be Von Vera.
Von Vera?
Von Vera.
We're going to say a couple of ways to make sure at least we have it covered. So Von Vera.
Send us a voicemail.
Von Wera. That's the same guy. Still kind of a dirtbag. But either way, really good pilot, apparently. So he was interrogated 18 days and there, and then pre-1974 is when this was Lancashire. Yeah, it was a cool place over there between Windermere and Coniston Water. So if you're good at geography, it's over there. That's where he was there. But either way, it's all irrelevant. We'll keep moving. On the 7th of October, he tried to escape, not for the first time, but the second time during a daytime walk outside of the camp at a regular stop while a fruit cart provided a lucky diversion and another German prisoner covered for him. Von Wera slipped over a dry stone wall into a field. The guards alerted the local farmers at the home guard on the evening of October 10th, 3 days later, at around 11 p.m., 2 home guards found him sheltered from the rain in a hoggarth. Which, do you know what a hoggarth is?
No. I'm assuming it's a small stone hut used for storing sheep fodder that is common in the area.
That's a great assumption.
Yeah.
Great assumption. So he was removed from the hut. Apparently, he was caught up with some sheep, and he knocked the lamp to the ground, extinguishing the light. Then he quickly escaped and disappeared into the night. So I'm going to count that as escape number 3. So he escaped number 3. Then on the 12th, he was spotted climbing a fell. The area was surrounded, and Vera was eventually found almost immersed in a muddy depression in the ground. He was sentenced to 21 days of solitary confinement, and on the 3rd of November, he was transferred to camp number 13 in Derbyshire, also known as the Hayes Camp. Okay, so they got him. More solitaire.
I'm just going to assume that moving him once again proved to be a poor idea.
You would think so, yeah. And I don't know why they thought it was a good idea, but they kept moving him, and then he just
keep him in solitary. He's right in solitary. Keep him in solitary.
That's what you would think. I don't know, but these guys are professionals, and he's really good at not only working the system, but getting people to kind of do the dirty work for him. So, camp number 13, he joined a group calling itself Swanwick Tiffbau AG. Which was digging an escape tunnel. The tunnel can still be seen at the Hayes Conference Center. On December 17, 1940, after a month's digging, it was then complete. All right. So then 3 days later, on the 20th of December, he and 4 others slipped out of the tunnel under the cover of an anti-aircraft fire in the singing of the camp choir. The others were recaptured very quickly. Not him. He proceeded alone. He had taken along his flying suit and decided to masquerade as Captain Van Lot, a Dutch Royal Netherlands Air Force pilot. He told a friendly locomotive driver that he was a downed bomber pilot trying to reach his unit and has to be taken to the nearest RAF base. All right, so he had the hindsight to bring the uniform.
Well, I know what's interesting about that?
I do.
He could impersonate a Dutch pilot, I bet, because there's this weird thing with Dutch and German, where I believe it is the Dutch can read and understand German, but Germans can't read and understand Dutch.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's one way, it goes one of those 2 ways. But yeah, one of the languages can understand the other, but it's not the other way around.
And he's a Von. This guy was a Von.
Yeah.
Let's see if it worked out for him. So he was at a railroad station, the Codnor Park Railroad Station. Local clerk kind of became suspicious, but eventually agreed to arrange the transportation to the aerodrome at RAF Hucknall near Nottingham. The police also questioned him, but he convinced them that he was harmless. They asked for credentials, and he claimed to be based at Dice near Aberdeen. While Boniface went to check his story, he excused himself and ran to the nearest hangar, trying to tell a mechanic that he was cleared for a test flight. They arrived just in time to arrest him at gunpoint as he sat in the cockpit trying to learn the controls. He was then sent back to Hayes Camp under armed guard. Maybe the Hayes Camp just isn't for him.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know, send him to Scotland Yard. They've got to have, a cage.
You know what they decided to do?
walls?
They thought, hey, we're not going to do this. He's done with Hayes Camp. In January 1941, him and many other German prisoners were sent to Canada on the SS Duchess of York in a convoy departing Greenock on January 10th, 1941, guarded by HMS Ramillies, among other. All right, so this is where it starts to get good and a little more personal to our area. So he was then he was supposed to be taken to a camp on the north shore of Lake Superior, Ontario. So he began to plan his escape on to the United States because we were still neutral at the time.
Mhm.
All right, so he sells the buttons on his uniform, his Iron Cross, see how it cycles back, and anything else he had on him, so that way he could, have some money because he's planning this escape, and obviously he's going to need money for essentials. So on the 21st of January, while on a prison train that had departed from Montreal, he has the other passengers distract the guards, again, getting people to do the dirty work. He then just jumps out the window of a moving train and ends up near Smith Falls, Ontario, which is 30 miles from the St. Lawrence River. Keep in mind, if people listening locally, you're going to understand what it's like in January up here. People that might be listening anywhere else, it's super cold.
It sucks.
Think Antarctica, think Alaska, minus the polar bears. Super cold, super shitty. And now this guy just jumped out of a moving train, which initially I thought, how did he survive jumping from a moving train? Well, most moving trains back then were like 15, 20 mile an hour max. So, I mean, if you're going 15, 20 miles an hour, jump out, maybe,
big snowbank.
Yeah. Hit a snowbank, or even maybe, he's a pilot. He knows how to probably land properly in a crash. Train wasn't a big deal for him, but what's about to happen, it starts to become a bigger deal. So 7 other prisoners tried to escape from the same train, but they were recaptured. Again, he gets out with a bunch of people. They all get caught. He doesn't. So, but the more impressive part, they didn't even know he wasn't there until the next afternoon. So he's already got a huge leg up on this 30-mile trek, because obviously he now has to cross the river to get to the U.S. and be safe. So obviously it's cold in January.
Yep.
He's in Canada,
Yep.
and he trudges dozens and dozens of miles, approximately 30 miles, finds the St. Lawrence River. He knows he needs to get there. He thinks it's frozen, but as he quickly realizes, it's not. He walks through there, not totally frozen.
And then for context here, the St. Lawrence River at most points in this area, we're talking a mile plus wide.
Yeah.
Like this isn't like a quick hop, skip, ford the river. We're talking over a mile of completely unkept, untamed, snow-covered ice.
Yeah, you're not, and it's not going to freeze all the way across because
No.
it is a pretty quick river, and you're not going to swim it this time of the year. And the current is so fast that if he started, say, in Smith Falls, he's going to end up who knows how many miles if he makes it.
Actually, I bet you at this time it was still rapids at those spots, because I don't think the rapids got dug out until after the war.
Yeah, which is woo.
So I don't think rapids freeze.
No. So then he says, all right, how am I going to get across this river? He then naturally steals a punt, which is a flat bottom boat, kind of like a rowboat, but he doesn't have any oars. So obviously he couldn't do the oars. So what he did is he walked the boat as far as he could on the ice, got into the boat on the water, and he got across using his hands as paddles.
Which is insane. Like, I remember walking around town in this area around this time as a kid, like going to McDonald's, going to the store, getting a soda or whatever. And like you step in a puddle and your sneakers get wet and you're trying to walk around. Apparently it could be a nice day. You're freezing by the time you get home. Like it is just something about certain times of year up here where the wind is nasty. Everything is wet, but freezing cold at the same time. So the thought that this guy is doggy paddling on a bass boat across the St. Lawrence in the middle of, what was it, January?
January, yep.
No, thank you.
Yep.
Absolutely not.
And let's be honest, it's not a bass boat. I mean, it's in the 40s, a punt. I mean, he's in a very little, I mean, a bass boat probably would have been better a little bit.
I'm going to Google what a punt looks like.
And it's just kind of like a John boat, like a flat bottom, just small little boat. So either way, he's in this boat paddling by hands, but because obviously it's sub-zero temperatures, the water is frigid. He gets frostbite on his hands, his ears, and the suffering anywhere that he had exposure. His lips are swollen. He is in terrible, terrible shape. So he ends up making it across near the state hospital in Ogdensburg. And obviously there's some attention. that is being there. And what's pretty wild is there's even people to this day that are still coming across shore and getting attention on this river. But there was a local mechanic named Alan, I'm going to say Crites. Is that how you would say it? Crites?
Crites. My brain is telling me it was just Crites, but I can see Crites too.
Let's go Crites.
If there's any Crites in the area, call into the show, correct us.
Yeah, if your grandfather, great-great-great-great-grandfather, or an uncle or cousin name is Alan Crites, please let us know. And he's working late near the state hospital. And then he thinks, I think this guy's a border jumper. I think he crossed illegally. He actually has no idea, allegedly, that this is a Nazi pilot. So naturally, he says, hey, I'm a charming guy. I'm in rough shape. Asks for a ride into town. He's, Crites is suspicious, but apparently he gave him a ride. Why not? It's the 40s. What really bad happens then? So he gets them to the corner of Ford and Patterson.
Busy intersection here in town.
Pretty busy, which shout out Sully's Tavern.
Shout out Sully's.
Sully's Tavern. Not sure if Sully's was there or what it was in the 40s.
I bet you those pool tables are still there at that time, though.
Probably. Yeah. Maybe it was, I'm going to say it was Bob's Tavern. I don't know what it is, but I'd love
my local history always failed me. I didn't realize Sully's was Bob's.
I'm not sure. I think I remember Bob's.
I have no idea.
I don't know either. But somebody figure out that is big into the Ogdensburg bar scene in history. Let us know what Sully's was before Sully's, because he was right there. Vera, whatever we're going to call him, probably a cousin of Vera Bradley, was dropped right on that corner. So they just let him out. So he goes right to City Hall, Crites does, and reports the mystery man. Apparently, it wasn't a real hard capture because he had no idea where to go. You know what I mean? He was even just still on the corner. I mean, how can you escape 3 times different countries and then you just stand in Ogdensburg on Ford and Patterson and just, oh, wait, because he was frozen.
Yeah. And that's an old part of town. It's not like at this time that wouldn't have been a developed area. Like, just, I don't know, man, just like go down Patterson Street.
I say it's easy for us. I mean, he did just trek 30 miles and rode across the river with his hands.
We'll give him a pass.
The jig is up anyways. He was taken into custody and he went to Hepburn Hospital for his frostbite. So that dump of a hospital, Claxon Hepburn Medical Center, back in the day, had this guy in his facility. And then, all right, here we go. He was taken into custody. And then he demanded a lawyer because he obviously knew he was in trouble. And the judge was like, all right, we have the best lawyer in town, and he's Jewish. And then he refused to let this guy represent him. Obviously.
Shocking.
Yeah. So during this time, the people of Ogdensburg didn't know much about the Nazis and everything that was kind of happening in Germany. Obviously, technology, not anywhere near what it is today. So they were curious about him. They even invited him to the Elks Club dinner. He gets cleaned up, gets a haircut, new clothes, starts chatting it up with the locals. Everybody was like, he's a charming guy. He's funny. He's good looking. Probably has a couple relatives over here. He probably, what are the odds? He probably made a kid, if you know what I'm saying? Probably did. And he's the new person in town, but really he was an escaped prisoner. And a lot of people were very curious about this guy, but not everybody was fooled by his charm. The mayor at the time, Francis Burns, wanted him jailed. The mayor just kind of stood up to the people, even though, I guess that's what a mayor does. Even current mayors, allegedly, people don't really like, and he just stands up to him. But the mayor was like, no, he's not who he is. He's not a cool guy. He's a Nazi.
Which is fair. Now let's suspend the narrative real quick. Let's take this moment and put it in present time. Okay. First off, imagine if a guy in the middle of January washes up at the state hospital today.
Okay.
He's not going to find a guy working late as a mechanic. He's going to find a prison guard on duty, or he's going to find some dude smoking a lefty, listening to music in their car.
Probably. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Let's say the guy's smoking lefties, bring him to town.
Or he'll see some ice fishermen.
Those will not, there'd be no safe harbor there, I don't think. I think the ice fisherman would be probably the worst of the people he could run into. Best case scenario, teenagers smoking J's, listening to the Dirty Heads. But say he gets a ride into town.
Yep.
Okay.
Goes to Sully's.
Still safe. But imagine the scene. If this guy with frostbite and a burnt up face walked in the wing night at the Elks Lodge.
I mean, they're probably just going to say, what's this meth head doing here?
That's fair too.
Allegedly there's a lot of that in town, but either way, it's pretty cool too, that not only is, the Ford Street Patterson, which is a very busy intersection in town, but the Elks Lodge, which is still around there. There's some place, some people kind of say a lot of bad things about Ogdensburg. There's some rich history in this town, and some of the people were fooled by this guy. But pretty interesting that he was at the Elk Lodge. I mean, I've been at the Elk Lodge, had a couple beers and some. Everybody's been there, and so is this guy. That's how popular he is. All right.
So he's got a brick on the wall.
Does he?
I hope not.
We'll have to read that. Well, anybody at the Elks, let me know if he's got a brick. That'd be a bad look for you. Maybe take that brick out. But either way, he ended up getting charged by the immigration authorities for entering the country illegally. And then obviously he was able to get a hold of the local German consul who paid his bail. He then came to the attention of the press and told him a very embellished version of his story while the U.S. and Canadian authorities were negotiating his extradition. Did I say that right?
Extradition.
Yeah. I spelled it wrong, so I said it wrong. Anyways, the German vice consul then helps him get from Canada. He was already in Canada, got to the U.S. Then the German vice consul gets him to Mexico. He then proceeds to go from Mexico, Rio de Janeiro, which is in Brazil, Barcelona, which is in Spain. Then he gets to Rome. Then he finally gets back to Germany, April 18th, 1941, just a couple of months later.
That's... Whole stop, though.
Okay.
What judge allows him to be in a position where he can make bond or bail?
Yeah.
You have a war criminal, but you know what? Let's put him out on bail. Let's give him bail.
There has to be some kind of confusion. I mean, anytime you're dealing with international stuff in the U.S. and Canada and the authorities, how they were going to say, they were probably arguing who gets to make the arrest, who gets to be the hero, who gets to be in the paper. And then while they're all doing that, this I want to know how the German vice consul is able to just get him into Mexico. I don't know.
I mean, I don't understand Mexico. South America, I can understand. But I don't understand Mexico. Probably maybe they were chummier than I thought back then. I'm not sure.
Probably easy to get. I mean, it's much easier to get into Mexico than just kind of work your way down and around and over. And he did it.
He did it. Hey man, he won.
So he gets to Germany, and now he's a hero. Adolf Hitler then awards him the Knight's Cross. That we talked about, the Iron Cross. Then he was assigned the task of improving German techniques for interrogating captured pilots. Well, because he had some experience with the British system. So then he reported to the German High Command how he had been treated as a prisoner of war, and this caused an improvement in the treatment of Allied prisoners of war in Germany. He then writes a book about it titled
Mein Flucht aus England.
Yep, My Escape from England is what it translates to, although it did remain unpublished, which is kind of a bummer. I mean, not that him and the family should get any money, but I bet you it would do pretty well.
And spoiler alert, he wrote it, so we know what happens at the end.
Yeah, but imagine maybe we'd finally find out how the German consul got him into Mexico and why Mexico.
We would know if he was a ranch guy or a blue cheese guy.
And I couldn't.
Time at the Elks Lodge.
I probably wouldn't read it, and it'd be in German. It'd be really hard to read. It's true. So here we are on October 25th, 1941. He took off on a practice flight because then he was given a new role in the army. He was given like a squad and everything. So they were just going to go on a routine practice flight where, you know what I mean? They just to kind of patrol, just test out some stuff. Then his aircraft suffered engine failure and he crashed into a sea near Katwijk.
I don't know what that says.
We're going to go with that.
Katwijk.
JK, he's just kidding.
Katwijk?
So he was presumed killed, although they never found the body.
Maybe he escaped again.
That's what I'm saying. Spoiler alert. I'm thinking that something happened. He planned this whole thing, crashed, parachuted out, had a great life on an island anywhere. But what's even more amazing is this entire story was the subject of a 1957 film, The One That Got Away. So as all of this was happening, there was a ton of film crew in Ogdensburg and obviously surrounding areas wanting details, shooting this movie. I haven't seen it yet. It did star Hardy Kruger, probably not related to Jason or Freddy, any of those, horror movie guys, but hey, he was in there. The film also was based on a book by Kendall Burt and James Leesor, published in 1956. So obviously, book to movie. And then there was a documentary called Van Vera with clips from The One That Got Away, and it was released in the 2000s. That's wild.
That is pretty crazy.
I mean, it's just a wild story, and I think it's really cool that this stuff happened in a town. I've lived in this area most of my life. You've lived in this area pretty much your whole life
pretty
too.
Much my whole life too, yeah.
And neither of us really knew the details of this. And I think it's, it had to be episode 1. And there's going to be a ton of other stories, not only about Ogdensburg and the surrounding areas here, but a little farther down in the state of New York. We even have one that was already submitted by our buddy Brandon from Iowa. And we'd love it if you have stories about your town. We want to hear your stories, and we want to, bring these in, whether it's season 1, season 2. So quick little shout out to obviously where we got our research, Wikipedia. Obviously, we mentioned the article by WWNY-TV that featured Ogdensburg historian Julie Madlin, which there was a couple of details in there that really made this story a little bit better. So shout out to you guys. And what we're going to do at the end of it is we're going to leave you guys with a little quote that kind of has everything to do about this episode. So Zach, if you want to read the all-empowering quote of the day from this. And after that, we're done with this. We're going to leave with a quote, and we're going to say our goodbyes. Thanks for listening.
It makes you wonder what Von Wera, maybe he read some books. Maybe he was into early American history. Because as the late, great Benjamin Franklin once said, energy and persistence conquer all things. And for a guy, Von Wera, the only thing he could not conquer through persistence and energy was engine failure on his aircraft, and that was a bummer for him. But hey, thanks for tuning in to episode 1. We'll see you next time, right, Matt?
Yeah, we'll see you next time. You know what? We're gonna do a thing. We're gonna see an episode 2, and we can't look. You just look in the links, or if you're just listening and there is no link, just feel free to give us an email at yoretownpod@gmail.com, I think it is, or matt@beardlaws.com, producer Zach@beardlaws.com, Matt at yoretown.com. Instagram, Twitter, it's all over there. If you can't find somewhere to let us know, then you just truly don't want to. But send us your stories, and we can't wait to do this again. All right, that's what we got. Okay, bye.
Bye.